Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor Elias.
I'll go ahead and move consent as amended.
Second. Mr. Chairman, I would like to pull item 16 for separate discussion.
We're going to
And
close
vote.
up discussion. Oh, and vote? Okay.
Yes.
Is that by way of motion or is that friendly
I
amendment?
move that we've been doing this all year the same way, that I just asked to pull an item from the consent calendar, but I move to pull item 16 for separate vote.
Is there a second? Okay,
That's on the minutes, correct? Page
Correct.
15, page 15, 16, or whatever.
So this is a substitute motion to the motion I made? Or
correct.
my motion died for lack of a second?
No, you got a second.
Okay. So this is a substitute.
There's a substitute motion.
Which item is that, you're on?
Item
The
16,
minutes.
amended meeting minutes.
Okay. Supervisor Miller, you want to make a point?
Okay. Okay, on the meeting minutes on the August 19th Board of Supervisors meeting, these meeting minutes don't accurately reflect what was said and the action that was taken in that meeting. I'll begin with item 19, which was item 11 on the regular agenda in that meeting. I gave a detailed statement on this item, citing important statistics, victim stories, and my recommended solutions, but my comments were not incorporated into these meeting minutes. It appears as if I didn't comment at all. However, comments of other supervisors are incorporated. Is there a ruling or is there a rule on what does and does not get incorporated into the meeting minutes? I read a long statement. I do have a statement here. If you want me to read it back to you that I read that day, because it was typically we've been asked to provide copies of our statement to the clerk of the board, and we provided those, and she has incorporated them into prior meeting minutes, and this time it did not get incorporated on item 19. And I have two other items to discuss as well.
Madam Clerk?
Chairman Valdez, Supervisor Miller, I'll be happy to meet with you and we can go over the items that are in question. And we can determine, there is a methodology to the preparation of the minutes. So I will be happy to go over those and we can
So why don't we-
specifically address.
Why don't we just pull this item and continue?
That would be fine. We have 60 days to approve the minutes, so we still have time to approve the August 19 minutes.
Okay, and item 24 was the same, and then on item 39, I also had comments as well, 19, 24, and 39 that I felt should be incorporated. And then I would like to discuss an item that I pulled for separate vote on that same day that we never voted on. I pulled it from the consent agenda for separate vote. We've gone back and reviewed those meeting minutes or reviewed the video. And I did request a separate vote on the item for a contract with, let me see, where was the contract with? It was a contract on the consent agenda that I requested we pull for separate vote. And Supervisor Elias started asking questions at the same time, but after I had pulled it, he went ahead and made a motion to approve the consent calendar. After that, it was voted to approve it, but we never voted on the item that I had pulled from the consent calendar. So I'm looking for direction on how we proceed with that one. And I did look through the Board of Supervisors rules and parliamentary procedure, and it says that just as the request for the clerk of the board to enforce Rule C7, matters continued, the clerk shall place matters that the board does not act upon on the next meeting agenda unless the board otherwise directs. I had pulled that item 1 to be pulled for a separate vote at the August 19th meeting, and we never voted on it. So I believe we need to put this item back on the agenda for a vote on the next calendar.
Madam Clerk, which item is this?
Chairman Valdez and Supervisor Miller, there was some question about the motion, and I did consult with County Attorney and the Chairman, and we did go over the audio of the meeting. So I will be happy to meet with you on the minutes, the preparation of minutes.
And I'd just like to state that the parliamentary procedure on page 7 of the Pima County Board of Supervisors rules says that the board will follow Robert's rules where applicable and are in conflict with these or other superior rules. However, I will cite suspension of rules from Pima County Board of Supervisors rule and regulations adopted on April 16th. The last sentence says, excuse me, get allergies. Procedure that is inconsistent with a rule of procedure without objection implies suspension. I have been pulling items from the consent agenda in this way all year long. I pulled them for separate vote. We have never taken motions, and we pulled up videos. Supervisor Bronson doing the same thing. We don't make a motion to pull the item. We just pull the item for separate vote. That's been going on all year, and that's exactly how I did it in that meeting. So I would like to, I guess we can sit down and review it, but I would like this item put back on for a vote because we never voted on it.
Again, Madam Clerk, what's the item?
It was a contract with a, what even was this? It was, it was item number 11 on the consent calendar of the August 19 meeting.
Chairman Elias, the item was the Jose Loyola contract for the community and economic development technical assistance.
I had quoted, asked a few questions, and then Supervisor Elias started asking questions about another item on the agenda, so that we voted on the rest of the consent agenda, but we never voted on the item. So I'd like to move that we put that item on the next agenda for a vote.
Mr. Counsel, let me ask the question to Counsel. We have a rule dealing with contracts in our board rules. We would need to suspend that rule, would we not? And then on top of that, because the contract has already been executed, are we then running into a constitutional issue by suspending the rules on this particular item?
I don't know that I would go so far as to say it's a constitutional issue, but it is a breach, it would be considered a breach issue with the board and to somehow try to get out of what it did. I think effectively what happened with respect to that is that the board rules do provide, and I think it's incumbent upon the chair that does this and honors this request to consider items separately or requested. Effectively what happened was that there was no, if there was a motion by Supervisor Miller, I believe that motion was superseded by Supervisor Elias' motion. Could be considered essentially to be a substitute motion at that particular point.
He did not state that it was a substitute motion, and he interrupted me after I had requested that item be pulled from the vote, which is a violation of the decorum of the Board of Supervisor rules and regulations. And he interrupted me and confused the issue, and then made a motion to approve the whole consent calendar, when in fact I had pulled that item for a separate vote, as we have done in practice all year long. And as far as the contract, that contract started in February, and it wasn't brought to the board until late August. So that contract was already being worked without approval of the board for several months. So I just like to have this come back before the board for a vote, because we never voted on it. So that contract, in my opinion, is not even, it's never been voted or approved upon by the board. And Mr. Elias did not say he was making a substitute motion. We've listened to that video very carefully.
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Miller, was the motion not to approve the entire consent agenda then? If that was, then I think that then effectively there was a vote on that then to approve the item.
That was after I had pulled this item for a separate vote. Then Mr. Elias interrupted me and started discussing item 5 on the agenda, and it got very confusing, and then we never ended up voting. And according to the rules, the clerk of the board, if the board does not act on something, we are supposed to put it on the next meeting agenda. And I would like this item on the agenda so that we can take a formal vote. This contract was being, as I said, since February, this gentleman's been working without the contract being approved by the board.
And let me try and address the issue, Supervisor Miller. I've tried, and I apologize, I may have contributed to that confusion, so I apologize in advance. What I've been trying to do is when you make a request on the pulling issues, what generally has happened is I will then ask you to address your issues, you address the issue, and then we move on to the rest of the consent calendar. I apologize for the confusion, because I think I may have lent to that, because when I saw the video, I didn't recognize it as a motion, because generally what I've done is you'll ask your questions, you'll be satisfied, and then we'll move forward. So I apologize for that confusion. Now, having said that, and again, my apologies for what I may have lent to that confusion. The issue that we now have, however, is because we have it in our rules, and counsel, please correct me if I'm wrong, in order to reconsider or to, because the action was taken, the chair did recognize Supervisor Elias' motion and we voted on that motion. We would have to suspend our own rules under the contracts clause in our own rules. Then obviously we would have to do a reconsideration, and then we might be able to put it on the agenda for the vote. But I'm not really sure whether there are other more complex issues.
I didn't,
And again, I apologize for my lending to that confusion.
Mr. Chairman, I didn't, I pulled that from last week's agenda because I didn't agree that we needed to reconsider and suspend the rules on that reconsideration and suspend the rules on the contracts because we never voted on it. Supervisor Elias did not say I make a substitute motion after I had pulled that item for a separate vote. That's my point.
My point to you is, and that's where I think I led to the confusion, the chair did not recognize your comment as a motion. When I saw the video, the chair didn't recognize it as a motion, so there wasn't a need for a substitute. And again, I apologize for that. That was my part of the confusion. What we may want to do is in the future, when you need to make a motion, say, if you can make it very clear, make sure that I recognize it, please. I apologize for that.
Okay, I would like to go on the record that I did not support that contract.
Mr. Chairman,
Elias.
you know, I think that out of courtesy for everyone here on the board, that what we should do is that from now on, if you want to move an item off of consent, you should make a motion, and the board should vote on removing that item from consent. That way Ally doesn't get confused.
Well, I'm not the only one confused. I've been following your lead. This has been the general practice of the board all year long. We have not made motions to pull items from the consent agenda. Everyone says, I would like to pull this item for separate vote. And if you go back and listen to the videos all year long, and my staff did that, this is the form, the actions that the board has taken, and if you read the rules that the board has, that once you suspend the rules and the board acts in such a way, that becomes the rule, as long as there's no objection. There has been no objection to the way that I have pulled items from the consent agenda all year long, nor anyone else, and everyone else has pulled them in the same way. I think I've heard one time that someone, I think it was Ray, seconded one of my motions to pull an item from the consent agenda. That's the only time all year long that anyone has even made a motion. So we've just been pulling items, and this has been the general action of the board. So I would just like to see this item come up and be voted upon.
That's all fine. I think my comment still goes from now on. If we want to remove an item from consent, we should offer a motion to remove that item from consent, and the board should vote on it. That way, it's clear.
I agree with that, so the chair recognizes the motion. And again, I apologize for my muddiness as well. But the issue before us is whether or not we can actually put this item on the agenda based on our own rules and other procedures. Counsel?
Again, I think we're going to continue this particular item.
Yes.
And so I think that
We'll
you
try to
can
unpack
have, you can get back to us on what your opinion is.
or prefer.
For clarification's sake, Supervisor Miller, we are just dealing about the August 19th minutes, not the August 6th minutes,
That
right?
is correct.
Okay.
So we can approve the August 6th minutes?
But the motion
Yes.
for us is on the August 19th.
On the August 19th, yes, I would like to continue that item to the next meeting, and I would like to sit down with the,
You'd like to make a motion?
I move to continue that item to the next supervisor meeting.
Approval of the August 19th minutes.
Council, I believe we have a motion, which is a substitute motion to the original motion. Do I just need to withdraw, everybody withdraw
Yeah,
their motions?
everybody
All right,
withdraws.
sir.
I'll just go ahead and withdraw my motion, no, that's no problem.
In order.
I will withdraw my motion, and I will move that we
Hang on,
can.
hang on. So, the seconder, okay with withdrawal?
Yes, I am.
Supervisor Elias, would you withdraw your original motion?
Yes.
And who seconded that motion?
Me, Supervisor.
Are you okay with that? Now we've got to continue.
Okay, I move to continue item 16 on the consent calendar, the August 19th minutes to the next upcoming Board of Supervisor meeting.
Just the August 19th.
Just the August 19th minutes.
Second.
Okay, the motion before us is on the continuance of half of item 19, just for item 16, dealing with August 19th minutes, continue to the meeting of October 1st. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Ayes have it. All right. What about the rest of,
Mr. Chairman, I'll move the remainder of the consent calendar as amended.
Second.
motion and second to approve the remainder of consent as amended? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Ayes have it. Moving on to item number 14.
Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor Carroll.
on item number 14,